I realize it's almost 10, so I'm not going to drag it out, but Bishop made some comments a while ago, and I'm going to say what I thought I would say tomorrow, but Paul made a statement at one point in one of his letters to the church, and he said, this is an Arkansas paraphrase, he said, "It is our prayer that your faith will mature sooner than later, so that our ministry can no longer be about you, but that we can begin to reach," he said, "into the regions beyond you." The point I think he was making to them was, you have forced us with your inconsistencies and with your lack of faithfulness and commitment and maturity. You have forced our ministry to be all about you, when the world's going to hell just beyond you. But we can't even focus on the lost for trying to spend our time keeping you saved. Somewhere along the way, we were convinced by somebody, I don't know who or how, but that our job in the ministry was to keep people talked into staying in the church, Brother Wells. It's like we've become maintenance-minded people, and we are selling insurance or something. Or, hey, buy our policy here. Hey, this is a good deal. Stay with it. Oh, come on, God's gonna come through. And I don't know, maybe 3 weeks ago, 4, I don't know. I was praying one day, and I said, "Lord, what exactly is the time?" And he began to talk to me about that great falling away. And he said, "The harvest can't come in until I have rid my house of everything and everyone that would prevent the harvest from coming into it." He said, I won't suffer the harvest to be contaminated at this late date. That those that I'm going to reach for in this last push, I'm not going to suffer them to be contaminated by carnality and inconsistency and backbiting and all the mess that you've allowed to cohabitate with you in my own house. Some of the places that we think we would fight the greatest devils are down at the sorcery place and the psychic places, and those are big, and the crack house row and all that, and there's definitely there. But the greatest opposition to a flow of the Holy Ghost has always been right here in the house of God. And he's turned tables over in his own house before, and he's going to do it again. Then the Lord took me to the story of Judas, and the Lord's talking about someone's going to betray me. And you know the story. All the disciples knew, oh, he loves John. Get John to ask him who's going to do it. So John lays his head over on his chest and he said, "Hey, would you tell me who it is?" And the Lord says to him, "The one to whom I give the sop, he'll be the one to betray me." He didn't send out a memo. He didn't tell the whole room. He didn't even tell John, "Go tell Judas." He whispered it to John so that Judas couldn't even hear him. He didn't give him a heads up. He didn't say, "Judas, now I'm fixing to hand you this sop, and if you take it, you're going to bust hell wide open." He didn't do that. He had talked to Judas all he was going to talk to him. And in that moment, he acknowledges to John, "I'm giving it to one, and the one that takes it, the one I give it to, he's going to take it. I'm going to give it to him, he's going to take it, and he's going to be lost. He's the one that's going to betray me." He turns in just the next moment, hands that sop to Judas. Judas felt blessed and took it. And then the Lord makes a statement. He said, "Whatever thou doest, do quickly." And the Lord spoke to me the other day and he said, first of all, the only reason some have remained in the body this long is because I've kept my hand on them. They flirted with all of the things that they've called weaknesses in their flesh, and they've called, "I'm struggling with this and I'm struggling with that." He said the only reason those things haven't taken them out of my house so far is because I've kept my hand on them just like I did Judas. Judas argued with the Lord on more than one occasion about the way he did his business. "Why are you letting her break that alabaster box open and pull that expensive stuff? We could have sold that." And the Lord argued with him and dealt with him and kept him around. Even though he and Judas were not on the same page, he kept Judas there because he knew The only way you're going to have a chance at being saved is if I keep you close and keep my hand on you. But the scripture says that when he handed Judas the sop, Satan entered into him. And the Lord said to me, he said, there are spirits that have waited at the door to destroy people around my table. That last great banquet that they're a part of at this moment, where I'm sharing the most detailed, intimate pieces of my plan to come. And there are some that are sitting at my table now and do not even realize I'm about to hand them the sop. And when I do, Satan's going to enter into them as quickly as he did Judas, and they're going to leave my house. And once I've got them out, I can start bringing the harvest in. He said, and when I said, whatever thou doest, do quickly, you think I was speaking only to Judas. I wasn't speaking just to Judas. I was telling that spirit that had taken him, you now have my permission and I'm giving you instructions. Whatever you're going to do with Judas, do it now. There are going to be people in your churches that have been pillars in the church. They have been stable. They've been there. They've been committed. They've been whatever. But we call them, they're on the fringe, And it seems like every time and how many times do we say it? We're pulling for them. I feel like I'm reaching for that person again. Well, the problem is time's run out. Not running out. It's over. And God is probably not even going to tell you pastors, I'm done with them. He's just going to turn and hand them the sop. You already know who they are. He didn't tell John when he was going to hand him the sop. He just said, I'm going to give him the sop. And when God turns and gives those people in your churches the sop, I'm going to tell you what you're not going to feel. You're not going to feel a draw at all in your spirit to go after them. You may mentally feel bad for them, but there's going to be a release and a relief in your spirit that they are finally no longer a part of the equation, and you don't have to contend with that mess anymore. There are going to be preachers that he's going to give the sop to. And I'm telling you right now, and I stand willing to be rebuked by any and every one of you. But if you think that you're going to get to sing Kumbaya with all the people you have been laborers in the ministry with, all the way to the rapture, you've lost your mind. You're going to be ridiculed. You're going to be made fun of. From here on in, the price is going up. It's going to cost you things in your life that I thought I was going to get to keep. I've said it for years, and I mean it more now than I ever have before. I don't have a friends list, but if I did, I'd be looking every day to find out who I could cut off of it. Because there are going to be people that are they're on Facebook right now, belittling and making fun. Preachers that if I said their names, everybody in here knows them, making little snide comments, and it's taken everything in my body not to pick a phone up and rip somebody's face off. I'm so furious with them, and I keep hearing the Lord say, you be quiet. I'm about to give him some sop. There are going to be people that we've thought would never leave, and you're going to look up, and they're not just going to be gone. They're going to be gone, gone, gone. Leave them alone. There are 7+ billion people waiting on the people in this room to turn our attention on them. And I said it not long ago at Brother Shock's church, but our role in the end time from here on in more than ever before is to do the work of an evangelist. Reach the lost. If we haven't cultivated and saved them up to this point, you can't save them. If they've sat on our pews and been in our churches and done all this stuff and been co-laborers in the kingdom with us, and they still have not made the decision to commit, 5 more minutes isn't going to make any difference. I've said this, and this is a principle that I don't know that we've seen on a mass level before, but we're going to. You can push and push and push God till you get what you want. And then once we've got it, we realize, this ain't what I thought it was going to be. I don't really want this. Lot was dumber than a box of rocks. Get out of this valley. I've prepared a high place for you. And there are people even now, God is still saying to them, I need you to go up into a place I've prepared for you. I need you to get into that dimension of the Spirit you've never been in before. Well, I don't understand. It don't matter. Just get there. Lot's Lot said, was it Lot? Am I right? Lot said, I pray you don't make me go up there, lest some evil thing should befall me. You mean to tell me you think the place I've prepared for you is full of something evil that's going to tear you apart? Really? Okay, and then here's one of the scariest things in Scripture. What do you want? There comes a point you can get God in a position where He'll give you what you want. And when you're in a tug of war with Him and you're wanting something and He won't give it, and you're wanting something and He won't give it, and then all of a sudden it seems like He's finally saying, okay, fine. At that moment, we ought to be terrified running to an altar. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I don't want it. But okay, what do you want, Lot? Let me go to Zoar. Over in the corner of this valley you're about to wipe out. I want to live where I can smell the burned flesh of all the humanity that you're about to take out. Just let me live over in that corner in Zoar. And that word Zoar, now remember the Lord had just told him, I want to take you to a high place. He said, no, I want Zoar. And the word Zoar literally means a place of small things. He chose a small place in a valley of ruin as opposed to a high place in the will of God. You know the story. He goes, and then all too late, he realizes this is not where I needed to be, but by then it's way too late. Hezekiah, get your house in order. I don't want to go. What do you want? I want to stay around a while. Okay, fine. Well, you see how that worked out. And so we're at a point where God's fixing to start giving some people what they want. There are people that want acclaim and notoriety among their brethren more than they want an obscure place in a prayer room with God. And I'm going to tell you right this minute, God is fixing to let man elevate one another and be completely and totally blind to the seasons and the times. And when He comes, they're going to be as confused as any other living person on the planet because they thought they were going. The harvest didn't come until His house is cleaned out. 3 years ago, this September will be 4. The Lord said to me, my house is not in order. He said that twice. The third time He said, my house is not in apostolic order. Set my house in order because I'm coming. And when I come, if it's not in order, I will set it in order myself. And I have run people out of my house before. And if you refuse to set my house, your life in apostolic order, I am going to drive you and everyone like you out of my house. Revival's coming. I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news. I'm just telling you, there is no more time to say someday. That's today. So take heed to what God's saying to us. I know you are. Bishop gets in a place sometimes that makes people uncomfortable. And he says things that challenges people. Challenges me all the time. But what I have found is when he's talking, there are times, Brother Rodriguez, he says stuff and I'm like, what? One time he said, God don't love everybody. What? We used to sing in Sunday school that He got the whole world in His hand. He loves everybody. And then he followed it up with, because some people won't let Him love them. He has the willingness and the desire and the ability to love everybody, but everybody won't let Him. My point to you is, what he said at the end, I just want to double tap that. Don't think that anything coming out of His mouth, and I'm saying this while He's in the office and I'm out here, because it makes Him uncomfortable. But God's hand has set men in position and in places to lead us and guide us. And I think everyone in this room, Brother Elms, I mean every man of God sitting in this room is strategically placed in the kingdom and in this room and in this time, just as Brother Wright has been. And whatever is coming out of his mouth, I don't care if it's little Bo Peep has lost her sheep. there's something, he's saying something that God's speaking something that our audible ears not hearing. So don't just listen over the next day and a half with your hearing ear on the outside, but that hearing ear of the Spirit. Let God speak to you beyond what the natural ear is hearing. Keep your spirit open and let that impartation come. I will say this, in these final days ahead of us, whether that's 6 months or 6 decades, I don't know. I know people that feel like they have narrowed down the coming of the Lord to, like maybe a year, that within that year. I think that's cool, but I'm pretty sure nobody's really going to have it figured out just real close. I do think we know the seasons, and I think we are in that season. But we are going to have to learn to live and walk by faith. If you've been preaching online, just accept the fact the government knows where you're at. We thought the advent of technology allowed us to do all we're going to do on the great internet. I get a text on my phone the other day, and I read it to my wife. It's from somebody with the government wanting to know what my feelings and thoughts are on everything from Trump to Beersheba. And I said to my wife, I said, now, did you get one of these texts? She said, no, but I hadn't been on the internet talking about all the stuff you've been talking about. And I hadn't been texting from my phone like you have about the things you have. I got 3 small children. I got a lot of life insurance on my head, but I'd really rather be here, than to die unnecessarily in my flesh. I ain't going to lie about it. I mean, the idea of being a martyr has never been on my bucket list of things I intend to do. But when she said that to me the other day, it dawned on me. When the election stuff started and all that seemed to happen, and then all this other stuff from the election till now, me, just like all of you, just scads of stuff. I don't care if you're reading the news or not. People are sending the news to you. And if you accept a text or look at it, whoever's watching knows you opened it. If you're talking in your home about particular topics, they know. My brother-in-law had a situation one time where software was downloaded to his iPhone a couple of years ago that he didn't download. And his phone was off when it got downloaded. And it was government stuff. And it was eavesdropping stuff. And he screenshot what popped up because there was no trace of it in his phone anywhere, and took it to an IT guy. And the IT guy looked at it and slid the phone back. He said he wouldn't touch it with his finger. He just slid it. He said, I'm not touching that. And you'd do yourself a favor to get you a different phone. Throw that one in a burning barrel somewhere. And whatever you were doing prior to that showing up, don't do it again. He said, I wasn't doing anything. The point I'm making to you is, if we thought we were just going to slip through the world and go into the rapture kind of from obscurity, fat chance. That's not happening. They will send people into your churches to find out if you're preaching hateful stuff or not. And if you are, they'll lock your doors down, and that eminent domain stuff that's been around for a long time for highways and such, they'll broaden its reach and take your building because you're a threat to society. And because we've been willing to swallow every baited hook they've ever thrown us for our safety's sake, when you become a threat to society, society will not argue about them shutting churches down, and they'll shut your church down because we've got to keep the people safe. Jordan has not swelled. COVID was not the swelling of Jordan. But I said it the other night, it is starting to rain. And it won't be long before Jordan swells. So this is not just a time to be together and hang out. We'll have fun and all that good stuff. But I'm just telling you, if you hadn't already picked up on it, I'll be honest, I'll preface it with this. I have preached the rapture's coming, Jesus is taking us. I've preached that my entire ministry. But to be real honest with you, I really kind of figured I'd be dead and in the grave before all that happened. And I didn't think I believed that, Brother Elms, until all this stuff has started in the last, I don't know, maybe even the last 4 years. Things that was like, wait a minute. We didn't just elect a president. We set something in motion. 4 years ago when Trump was elected, we did not just elect a Republican president. We assisted God in setting something in motion in the Spirit. And so, not many weeks ago, it dawned on me, Bishop. I'm like, I don't think I thought I'd live to see this. And I had to get a little hitch in my giddy up over that deal. The Lord said to me not long ago, He said, you like your Second Amendment, do you? I said, oh, immensely. You loyal to your country? I said, Lord, you know I am. Would you fight for your country and your Second Amendment, your First Amendment? Lord, you know I would. He said, so is your country more important to you, and are you more loyal to your country than you are my kingdom? And Brother Harriet, I got to tell you, right that minute I thought, maybe. Because I don't think I believed that I would have to stand in front of that decision in my lifetime. But we do. I am going to own guns till Jesus comes, or I can no longer own them without infringing on my ability to do the will of God. And if somebody shows up at my door with uniforms and there's multiple folks on my front porch wanting to know where's your guns, I'll be like, right this way. Because that's not a hill that I can die on and please God. If we thought that we were going to live and die before those decisions were looking us in the face, when the new president signs executive orders saying that if you're under 18 now, you can choose to go in the boys' or girls' bathroom. I'm 53 years old in May. Do I have that same right to go in there if my two little 10-year-old daughters are in that bathroom and a 17-year-old boy goes in there, or a 25-year-old that looks 16? Can I go in? No, you're too old. And then another executive order that now then, with our transgender Secretary of Education nominee, oh, we love public school. You won't very long. And you think I'm kidding you, but there's going to come a point where the saints of God are going to have to make some choices. Do we want to live on a 2-income household where we have all the luxuries that we want? Or are we going to cut back on some of the pleasures we like so we can have one parent at home doing homeschool with our kids while we still can have homeschool? Brother Shelton, I just don't believe all that. Well, then you ought to just go out and eat at Papa Do's and Papa Cita's and don't come back in here. Because this 2 or 3 days is what this is all about. Prep, not just in our carnal mind, but in our spirit, to enable us to be able to navigate through the times ahead. And I'm just telling you, he said it earlier, there are going to be people that you have called your friend in the ministry that are going to mock you because you won't compromise on some morality issues. And they're going to mock you and make fun of you because you verbally make a stand and decide, I'm going to stand on the side of truth and righteousness. And it's going to cost, because you're going to have to look at those people and say, you know what? I'll be nice and kind and polite to you, but we are no longer going to be able to continue in fellowship with one another, because I can't take that. I got 3 children. I can't take that chance with. And the thought of doing what I'm doing and knowing that my kids may pay for me doing what I'm doing. I don't like notoriety. I don't want anybody to know my name. If it was left up to me, I'd be a hermit shoemaker in a little cabin in the woods. But the Lord hasn't seen fit to let that be the case. And you're online, you're doing stuff on the internet, and you're out there. So at some point in time, are my children going to be persecuted because of what Dad did in obedience to God? It's possible, and so are yours. If you've preached online to your people in the last 12 months, you're out there now. I don't want you to be afraid. I don't think God wants us to be either, but you better be sober and better be vigilant, because these are those times that God warned us was coming and invited us to be a part of. And I'm not afraid. I really am not. I'll be honest with you. There are days that my flesh is still there, and there's some trepidation, and I'm like, okay. And that trust factor Bishop was talking about, that's what really kicks into place. So open your spirit deep, deep, deep. I'll say this about him. I don't know of anybody that I know personally who walks by faith any more than he does, and that trusts God any more than he does. And I know a lot of people that trust God maybe as much as he does, but I don't know that I've ever been around somebody who had such total abandon to logic and reason and total submission to whatever the will of God is. And if we catch anything from him this weekend, I want a deeper dose of that. I really do. I have been on the receiving end of explosions, where I would call and ask questions that I knew in my brain, don't ask, don't ask, don't ask. And the explosion was, are you kidding me? Do you think God? Are you kidding me? I'm sorry. Oh, God, please forgive me. But I feel a lot of peace around him because I know the degree, at least to what I know, the degree to which I know he walks by faith. And I'm just telling you, him, others, I mentioned Bishop Herod, others in this room, all of us have our own stories to tell about how God has come through over and over and over and over and over and over. It will not be acclaim. It won't be fame. It won't be notoriety. It won't be likes on Facebook. It won't be YouTube likes. It won't be, and these little ignorant YouTube influencers, for God's sake, don't look at them. If you want an apostolic influence in your life, you probably need to go find a prayer warrior somewhere that's praying. You need to go find you a man or a woman of God and get with them and stay with them. Because that's what it's going to take to get us through this thing. And it is going to be awesome. But just in case you hadn't figured it out, these are those days we've been preaching about. And the harvest is on the way, but the house is going to get cleaned out first. And when God begins to purge people out of your churches and out of your life, take your hands off of them and let them go. Because if you don't, if we hang on to them, that same tide that's taking them is going to take you too. And it won't be for any fault of your own other than the fact you were trying to save them one more time. But let the Lord help you be sensitive. Go ahead and stand up. Let the Lord help you be sensitive to know when he's purging someone, and let them go. We'll, if you want to come in at 9:30 in the morning, the building will be open. There'll be people praying. And remember, throughout all of these sessions, anytime Bishop won't mind, if you want to get up and go back there and stand up, walk around the building, get a drink, go get coffee, don't hesitate to do it. Whatever you got to do to stay alert and awake and whatever. But and then at 10, or somewhere around there, we'll kind of make that a target and go. They will be cooking tomorrow, and if you have not had their fajitas, or the Born sister's going to be cooking them, it'll just bless your palate. You will have a happy palate when you're through. God bless you, Brother Bourne. You got anything you want to say? Well, go in peace and see you in the morning.